Welcome to A Change of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Angel Walston. And in this space, we navigate life together. We ask the hard questions like, what is the truth you haven't told? But most importantly, we grow together. And sometimes that leads to a change of heart. Everyone, welcome back to A Change of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Angel, and if you're tuning in for the first time, hey girl, welcome to the potty. If you're a returning listener, hey girl, hey, welcome back. Welcome back, sis. So, as I mentioned last week, this will be the season finale for season 4. So, this will be the last episode of the season. And listen, y'all, I had lots of intentions to talk about more things. We just didn't get there, okay? Time got away from me, but we will be coming back for season 5 in January. So just give me a little break. We're going to take the remainder of the year off, and then we will be coming back in the beginning of the year prayerfully. So just wanted to let you know that. And then also, I said last week that this week's episode would not go up on the normal Thursday, but that it would go up on Sunday. And there was a reason for that. And we're going to talk about it. So, normally I do a question of the day. I told y'all I ain't really been feeling the question of the day here lately. So, I said that instead of doing a question of the day, I would do a story time. And if you follow me on social media, you already know. If you don't follow me on social media, that's okay too, because I don't be posting for real. But I recently shared that I got engaged, and I've been holding on to this news for quite some time now. We've been engaged for a while, and I just chose to keep it private. I enjoyed him and I being able to enjoy that with family and friends before making it public. So I decided, since I shared it on social media first, because y'all know the podcast, this is the group chat, this is the girls, this is the girlies. Since I did not share it with you all first, y'all are going to get the inside scoop. You're going to get the backstory. So today's story time is going to be my proposal story. And before we jump into the story, I feel like I got to give y'all some context just to kind of bring you up to speed. So, just for some things to make sense as far as why my response, reaction, everything was what it was as far as the proposal. So, before we get there, I do want to tell y'all a little quick story. And that is one of the people who follow me on Instagram. So I got a random DM. This was 2 years ago now. I got a random DM from this woman. Never met her, never talked to her, never had any kind of interaction with her ever in my life. And she sent me this message one day, and she pretty much was like, I never do this, but I just really felt like I felt led to share this with you. And I wanted to tell you this. So the message said, and this was July of 2021. So the message said, "Good morning, beautiful. A couple of days ago, I saw you more than one time in a vision getting married. I feel like the Spirit of God wanted me to share this with you. I don't normally do this, and honestly, I'm still learning Instagram. LOL, God bless, sis." And I was like, okay. So at that time, when I tell you I was single as a Pringle, like there was literally, I wasn't dating, I wasn't trying to date, I wasn't talking to anybody. There were no prospects in sight or anything like that. So it's like, okay, girl, whatever. And I'll say this too. I've had people prophesy marriage over me years ago. So you do kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, all right, thank you. So when she messaged me that, I was just like, I was in a space where I was like, you know what? I'm going to be open. So I was just like, okay, girl, nothing, like there's no prospects in sight, but I'll receive it. So that was in July. I met my current fiance in December that same year. And I messaged her when we got engaged and was like, listen, you hear from the Lord for real. Like, don't ever doubt that you hear from the Lord, because you sending me that message literally like sparked something in me that I didn't even know I had given up on. So when God tell you to say something, you better say that, because ma'am, you for real hear from the Lord. So I wanted to share that little tidbit. So now the context for our proposal. So let me take you all the way back. I told y'all we've been engaged. I've just decided to share it publicly. let me take you back to Christmas of last year. So last Christmas, I just felt like my man was being a little sus. Like I didn't know what was going on, but I felt like he was being a little sus. And I convinced myself that, oh my gosh, this man is about to propose. So, and it wasn't anything like specific. It was just, I felt like his behavior was a little bit different. He didn't think so because I did have this conversation with him later, but his behavior was a little bit different. I observed him having a conversation with a family member, and I just assumed as like, oh, this man just showed her my ring. They didn't want me, like created a whole narrative, right? And he had asked my mom to go out for lunch prior to this. And that wasn't necessarily out of the norm because they do have a great relationship, but this would have been his first outing without me with her. So I'm like, they're definitely going to be talking about marriage. Like, there's no way he's taking her out. He's not asking her to marry me. Like, come on. So just the whole day, I felt like this man is going to propose. And the thing is, I did not know if I was ready for that. It's like, I don't know if it's too soon. I just feel like maybe we need a little bit more time. Like, am I ready for this? So all these different things going through my head. And as the day goes on, I'm thinking like, when is he gonna do it? You know? And spoiler alert, it does not happen. Okay. So the funny thing is, it took it not happening to make me realize like, okay, I actually think I am ready for this. I was unsure before, but I think I actually might be ready for this. And I would say yes. So after that point, I felt like, we've had the conversation about marriage. We've looked at rings. So it's like I knew it was coming. Prior to then, I did think that it would be later on, like maybe this summer, maybe our 2-year anniversary, not necessarily like right now. So in my head, I'm like, okay, we're not gonna, put too much pressure on this. But then every like major thing after that, I'm like, is he gonna propose? Like we got New Year's coming up, we have our 1-year anniversary coming up, we got Valentine's Day coming up, like my birthday. So there's all of these different events per se that I'm thinking that he may propose. And going into the new year, I felt like, not that I was obsessing over it, but I definitely was thinking about it a lot. And I did not like that because I was in my head just always wondering, like, is he going to propose? Is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? So after the new year, I just decided I'm not going to think about this. I'm going to completely take him proposing like off the table in my mind. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But I need to like get it out of my head because I'm definitely overthinking this at this point and I don't like it. And I don't like the anticipation of something and it doesn't happen. So from that point on, I made a decision. I talked to one of my friends and I was like, I feel like I'm low key starting to think about it too much and I don't like that. So I need to step back from it. And she was like, don't put pressure on it. It will happen when it's supposed to happen, blah, blah, blah. So fast forward, does not propose New Year. Spoiler alert. Then obviously our 1-year anniversary was coming up next. And we both were celebrating, like taking a day to celebrate our anniversary. So I was planning a date and then he was planning a separate date. And my date was first. And we had like a cute little nice little romantic candlelit dinner. And I'd already went into my date saying he's not going to propose. So I didn't buy a new dress. It was something like cute and cozy, something at the house. It's like, I'm not getting my nails done. I'm not going to like set myself up for this anticipation of this happening. So he did not propose. Then it's time for his date, which was, I think like a week later. And still I was like, he's not going to propose. We don't need to like put a lot of pressure on this. We don't need to be in our head. Just go with the flow. We're going to have dinner. We're going to have us a good time. And I'm going to go home as a girlfriend. So I get to his house and he met me at the front door, which isn't necessarily abnormal when we're going somewhere because I be late sometimes, okay? Not all the times, but I be running a little bit late. So, and I knew we had a reservation. So he met me at the door. So I didn't actually go in his house. So as we were going, and also I didn't know anything about his date. I knew we were going to dinner because I knew we had a reservation, but that was all that I knew about our date. So we get to the Boathouse restaurant, and also he's very dressed up. He dressed up sometimes, but he was very dressed up, looked very handsome. So we get to the Boathouse, have a good time there. And he did get up during dinner at one point. I just assumed he was going to the bathroom. Ain't think nothing of it, right? So we get back in the car. It was cold too, because this was January, mind you. So no, it was February actually. It was freezing cold out. And so I put on my little fuzzy socks. I took my heels off, put my little fuzzy socks, put my slides on. And mind you, for his date, I did not buy a new dress and go and get a manicure. I did have a little pedicure. Actually, I had on peep toe shoes, so I only had the 3 toes that was peeping out. Those are the only ones that were painted. But I took my heels off, put my little fluffy socks on, threw my slides on. So we get back to his house, and when he opens the door, I go and turn the light on, and I see it's rose petals all on the floor. And I'm like, oh, like he's trying to be romantical. And still in my head, I'm literally saying in my head, like, Angel, this is not a proposal. This is just a romantic gesture, but let's just chill. So the rose petals started at the front door, went all the way to the back door. And I'm like, do you want me to go outside? Because it was cold. He was like, girl, go outside. So I open the screen door, and it's rose petals on the ground. There's balloons everywhere. And still in my head, I'm like, this is not a proposal. This ain't a proposal, girl, okay? We just gonna enjoy this moment. This is his romantic gesture. It ain't a proposal, boo-boo. So we're out there, and he gives his little spiel, and I'm not good at this, da da da. And it was literally not until he goes to pull the ring out and gets down on his knee that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, this is happening. And he has this whole thing about I didn't cry. I think I was honestly in shock because I literally had talked myself out of it so much so that the fact that it was happening. And listen to y'all, when I realized what was happening and I looked up, the balloons was like a huge ring. It was a heart balloon. It should have been obvious that it was a proposal. He said that there was music playing, that You by Jesse Powell was playing. I ain't hear it, but that's what he said. It was very obvious in hindsight that it was a proposal. But I had literally hyped myself up so much previously that now I was not going to get excited, and then it didn't happen. So when it happened, it was like, oh, it's happening now. And so obviously I say yes. And then I look in the doorway, and his friend is in the doorway recording the whole thing. I had no idea this man was in his house, not observant at all. And once we looked back at the video and pictures and stuff, bless his friend's heart, we can't use none of that as content because it was dark outside. The backlight wasn't on. The video is completely black. You can see our outline somewhat. You can hear everything that's said, but you can see nothing. So we don't have actual footage of our proposal. The pictures are blurry. There's a whole lot going on. So the actual engagement video that you see that I shared our engagement, that is not the actual proposal. Those are our engagement pictures, somewhat recreating a proposal because we have literally no evidence of that outside of blurry pictures and a black video. But yes, so that is my proposal story. And I was trying to think about what did I want to do for this episode? So what did I want it to be about? And I decided I wanted to talk about what my relationship has taught me. So I said from day one with the first episode when I shared I had me a little boo thing that I wanted to respect the privacy of our relationship. I wanted to respect his privacy specifically because he ain't asked for this. He ain't asked to be in the podcast, none of that stuff, or have his business out there. And I will always respect that. So I am going to speak specifically to things regarding me and what I've learned through this relationship, what I've learned in my fiancehood. And yeah, so let's deep dive. So the first thing I will say that my relationship has taught me is that it's very true what they say as far as if you're not ready, you will get ready. The right person, you will get ready for the right person. And a lot of times we say that as women, the right man, if he feels like he's not ready, if he wants to be with you, he will get himself ready. Amen, sister. But it was me. I was the one who was not ready, and he will tell anybody I gave him a hard time starting out. Okay, I will acknowledge that for sure. I give him a hard time now too, but I will say that this relationship taught me that I was not as ready as I thought I was for a relationship. Even though I was not actively seeking one when I met him, it did teach me that I was not as ready as I thought I was. I thought that I had a lot more tools that would help me to, be a great catch in a relationship. And I realized that I was basing all of that more so off of what I do versus who I am. And we talk about that all the time on the potty, right? So I have a lot of successful things attached to me. I have a lot of titles. I have a lot of things that I do. I do a lot of things well. And this is not a flex because what I'm about to say is about to shut all of that down. But I have held a lot of those things, not even really recognizing it, but held a lot of those things to my credit in a sense of this makes me a great catch because I do this, I do that. Like I can give you my resume and it's like it sounds good. It looks good on paper. And I realized in this relationship that yes, I've accomplished a lot. Yes, I have been successful in a lot of ways, but even as much as I have done an inner work on myself, I did not take the time to do the inner work really that was necessary for a relationship. I was doing the inner work as an individual, but to have to come in and be connected with somebody else and learn how to navigate the ebbs and flows of that, I was not prepared for that and I was not ready for that. And I can genuinely say, I'm really grateful for having a patient partner because he's had to be very patient with me in a lot of ways. And let me be clear, this is not self-deprecating. Like I'm a catch. Don't get don't get that twisted. But I also had things that I needed to work on. And I'm not going to say that I went into a relationship thinking I didn't have anything to work on because that humble thyself, ma'am. I didn't feel like that, but I didn't realize how much I actually needed to work on to be successful in a relationship and how much I needed a partner who would be patient with me as I'm learning that. I've always said that that man has taught me, he has allowed me to experience a grace that I did not even know I needed just with how patient he has been with me and also just how kind he has been with me as I have had to learn and navigate being someone who is very self-sufficient, very much so an independent person and who has operated very much so independently outside of a relationship for a long time. So that was an adjustment for me, but I'm grateful for the type of partner that I have who has helped me and who has been patient with me through it. Another lesson, or what my relationship has taught me, is just how just how intentional God is and also how he really does care about the littlest of things, the things that seem non-important, the things that seem non-important, the things that seem small, the things that really in the grand scheme of things don't matter. Like God really be in the details. He really does care about all the little things. And also it has reminded me of things that I prayed for years ago that I had not thought about since years ago. And so, for example, one of the things when I was in maybe middle school or high school that I remember saying I wanted in the person that I married was I wanted someone who had an easy last name because people mess up my name all the time. Like, I am Watson, Walton, Winston. Like, people never pronounce my last name right. And whenever I say it, they misspell it. I have to repeat myself. And because my last name started with a W, I was always at the end. So graduation, I was one of the last people. And I hated that. I remember when I was going through like my list of things that I wanted in a man, who I was going to marry. I remember always saying, I want someone who has an easy last name, and I want someone whose last name is at least in the middle of the alphabet or further up. It's like I didn't want to be A, B, C, D. Like I didn't want to be that far up because you don't want to be first and like be unprepared. But I knew I didn't want to marry someone whose last name was towards the end of the alphabet, and his last name is Jackson. It don't get more basic than that. So it really was just a reminder of, oh, I did pray that. Like I did ask for it. And it wasn't even a prayer. It was something I asked for, just like wanting, not even realizing how that was something that would be an answered prayer 2 decades later, 3 decades later. Like that's crazy. But it really has just reminded me of how God really does care about the little things, about how he really does care about the things that seem insignificant or that we may deem insignificant. He really does care about all the little details, and that it just makes my heart full. Another thing that my relationship has taught me is to let go of the idea of what I think things should look like. And so this is even beyond just a relationship, but specifically with him. So I'm going to be honest. I had this idea of what I thought my husband would be, and it did not look how our relationship looks, but I would not change anything about our relationship. Our story is very unconventional. Like there's literally nothing conventional about our story, but it works. And it's just so interesting. I never wanted to date somebody younger than me again. My man's is younger than me. But it was just little things that was so different from what I thought it would be. The crazy thing about that is I remember praying once again years ago, and I said, God, I will know who it is who you have for me. I will know that man is my husband because it will be different than any other relationship I've been in. It will look differently, he will be different, and it'll be a noticeable difference. The thing was, it was different, but it was way more different than I anticipated. And I had all of these thoughts of like, oh, it'll look like this, it'll look like that, it'll look like this. And the difference for me is like, homie won't cheat. Like, homie won't be a liar. The man will show up. He'll be faithful. He'll be consistent. That was what I meant by it would be different. And it was just interesting, all of the other ways that it was very different from anyone else I had ever dated before. But there was still this reassurance that came even in the difference. There was still this reassurance that came with just letting me know, like, okay, this is different. Not what I expected at all, but I really like him and he's really intentional. That was a big thing for me. He was very intentional. He was very consistent with me. And I'm just like, okay, God, I don't know what you're doing, but okay. But that is something that, although it was focused on my relationship, that is something that my relationship has taught me in general with how I do life. So I can have a whole lot of ideas about how I think something should be, how I think it should go, and it can be completely different than what I thought it would be or should be, and I don't want to miss it because I'm expecting it to show up in one way, or I'm expecting it to look like this, but it looks like that. And so that has been a lesson for me. Like that's something that practically has helped me to open up my perspective a little bit more and has forced me to really just be honest with myself as far as how I am observing different things that are coming my way, open doors, looking at life in general. It's like, I don't want to miss what you have for me, God, because I have this limited view of what I think it should look like. And I'm rejecting it because it doesn't look the way that I thought it should. So that's something that I am really trying to be intentional about, just being more aware of that. Another thing that my relationship has taught me is, even with the idea of it looks different, it may be different from what I expected or what I thought it would be. This relationship has taught me that I truly can have what I want, even when it looks differently than what I thought it would. Our relationship has definitely been a journey. It has been a lot of figuring things out together. But what I can say is, one of the things that I have loved about this relationship is that I've never had to question, do he want to be here? Do he like me? Are we going to be together? Like, I've never had to question that. He's been very intentional from the first day that I met him, even when I was inconsistent. He has been very consistent. He has been very consistent about letting me know what he wanted, that he wanted to be married. He's been very intentional about letting me know that he hears me. And it's just little ways that he has shown that he listens to me. It's little ways that he has shown that he cares, that he loves me. And I think about how much I thought, like, I don't know where this would go. I don't know if, like, this is supposed to lead to a relationship, where we were like in the very early stages of us talking. And when I would tell my friends, they were all like, just allow yourself to like him. Like, it's okay. I was very guarded, and I'm very protective of myself. Two people don't play about me and God, okay? Not in that order. But I'm very protective of myself. And I knew that for me to be in a relationship, y'all know he got to be solid. Like, I'm not about to just be out here with any and everybody. And so I'm very protective of my space. I was very content being single, and probably to the point of it being a negative sense, because I really felt like I could leave this earth single and I'd be straight, would be fine, would not think twice about it. But I did have a desire for marriage. But for me, I was always in my head like, it has to be right. And if it's not right, I don't want it. I would rather be single than to be in something and it's not right. So for me, it really was just being like, okay, I've seen his character. I like how he treats me, but I love how he treats other people too. That was a big thing for me. How he treated me, it was not just specific to me. How he treated everybody, I loved that. He was always kind. He was always respectful. And I love that. But I realized that I needed to let my guard down. And I remember after our second date, I called my friend and I was telling her, I feel really safe with him. And that's huge. Like, that's huge coming from me, because it wasn't a safe thing about like him protecting me. He can, but it wasn't about that. It was, I feel really safe with him as far as my heart. Like, I trust that he's not going to hurt me intentionally. I trust that his intentions are pure. I trust that he wants this. Like, he's not just saying this to get something from me. He really wants this. He wants a relationship. He wants marriage. And I I trust that he won't play with me. And I can honestly say, throughout our relationship, that has been consistent. It has been consistent the entire time. And I'm just genuinely grateful to realize that, although, like I said, I had this idea of what I thought it might look like, that ultimately he still was and is the best choice for me. And I've been able to see that things that I've prayed for. I've always said I wanted someone who was patient. I'm a lot, okay? I'm a lot. And I always said I wanted someone who was patient. I always wanted someone whose character spoke for itself, someone who loves God, obviously. But there were certain, like, very practical things that were really important to me. And just being able to see that in him, and in hindsight now, being able to see that in him, being able to look and realize, like, wow, these really are things that I wanted. And when it's all said and done, I needed to be reminded that I could have what I wanted. Because listen, I know how it is dating, y'all, even though I didn't date a ton before him, but I know how it is dating, and I know it's big trash out there. But there are good men. There are solid men. There are men who want to do right by you and will do right by you. And I'm not saying I didn't think it existed, because I knew it existed because I saw it happening for other people, right? But I did feel like it wasn't going to happen for me. I'll be honest about that. I felt like it wasn't going to happen for me. And to be able to experience this now, I want to share it now with other people who may be in that same boat, to let you know you can have what you want. You really can. You don't have to settle. There may be some adjustments you have to make. I will acknowledge that. But you don't have to settle to get what you want. It really does exist. And the right person will show you that. Like, it will show you that what you were asking for, what you wanted, you were never asking for too much. Like, it's reasonable and it is within your reach. I needed to be reminded of that. So I want to remind you of that as well. The last thing that I'll share that my relationship has taught me is that I needed to give myself permission to receive love. And I didn't realize that, because I was not looking for a relationship when we met. But once I realized that, okay, this person is actually really serious and I don't feel like he'll waste my time, I realized that I was still very guarded and that I was still very uncertain about being in a relationship and what that would look like for me. And it wasn't even specific to him, it was in general. And I realized that I had to let go of the fear of being hurt, the fear of, well, what if this doesn't work out? What if I invest this time into a person, I give this person all this energy, and then he play in my face and I gotta fight him? Like, so I realized that I had to give myself permission to be open to receive love, because he was willing to give it. And I had to allow myself to receive it without trying to calculate the what ifs. And that's way easier said than done, but it definitely was something that made me realize how closed off I was to it. I didn't realize it until I was being pursued in a way that I'm like, oh, okay, then I guess I need to get ready, and I'm not ready. So that's that really put some things into perspective for me and helped me to say, okay, I have a choice to make, because I can either allow myself to be closed off to it and to miss out potentially on experiencing a love that is pure, that is healthy, and having a successful relationship, or I can take a risk, and being okay with that risk being that it doesn't work out, being okay with being disappointed if it falls flat, and just allowing myself to potentially get hurt. And that's a scary space to be in, because I feel like being in a romantic relationship is probably one of, if not the most vulnerable type of relationship you will be in, because your partner knows you in ways that a lot of people don't, and most people don't and never will. And to think about being that connected to someone and knowing they have the potential to hurt you, knowing that they have the potential to not be who they've portrayed themselves to be, waiting for the switch up. We've all been there. And I think for me, I don't know exactly what the turning point was, but we had a lot of conversations about things, and he was never put off, or at least he didn't act put off. he was never he never gave me the impression that anything I told him was too much, or that he was unsure of how he felt about something I told him. He was always very receptive. He was always very open, and he never like judged anything I'd said or did, or made me feel like, all right, he don't want this. And I realized, okay, if I feel safe in that space, then I feel like it's worth the risk. And that was something I had to make a decision about, because it felt very scary. And I know like this seems very middle school, but there's a lot that comes with being in a relationship, but there's also a lot that is attached to it. And so I know how I am in relationships. It takes me a while in general, not even just romantic relationships. It does take me a while to get close to people. But once I'm in there, and I'm in there deep. And so my prayer has always been, God, if this ain't for me, cut it off. Like, get rid of it. Let him know, let me know, let somebody know. Let it be done, because I didn't want to waste anyone's time, and I didn't want to put myself in a position where I'm connected to somebody who I'm not supposed to be. And now I'm hung up on someone, and I end up stuck in a relationship that I'm not supposed to be. So I want to be really mindful of that, but I also need to let the guard down so that I can experience the fullness of love. Because right now I'm just kind of going through the motions of it, but I want to experience the fullness of it. And to be in that position, to be able to receive a love that's genuine, that's pure, and that essentially was made for me, it really helped me to let that guard down. And so, yeah. So that's where we are, ladies. I know this wasn't our typical not blog. I know this wasn't our typical episode of encouragement and all that, but I did just want to share my news with you all, because this is the girl chat. This is the group chat, and y'all get the inside scoop. You get the behind the scenes. And so I do just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has shared congratulations, well wishes, love, support, all of that. I've not been able to respond to all of them because it's so much, but genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it. This has been a journey. There are a lot of you who have been on this singleness journey with me for a decade and then some, from when I first started Change Hearts. And to be in this space now, transitioning to becoming a wife, like, that's crazy to me to even think. Like, it's still kind of setting in, as we are approaching our wedding. It's really just like, oh, we really about to do this thing. Like, it's really happening. And so my heart is just very full right now. I'm just very, very grateful for this season that I'm in. And this also helps to give some context to a lot of things I've said throughout this season. Because y'all, I was engaged when the season started. If you didn't pick up on that from the story time, I just still refer to him as my boyfriend because we weren't sharing it yet. But as I've mentioned, I'm about to transition into a season I ain't never been in before, and I ain't got no experience in. So I do just ask that y'all pray for us, pray for me specifically, as I am transitioning to becoming a wife and learning what that role looks like. And let me say this, the content is not going to change. I'm not saying he'll never be a part of the podcast. There may be an episode that we do together. I will leave that up to him. That's not really his thing, but I'll leave that up to him if he wants to be a part of the podcast. But the content is not now about to be marriage focused. It's not about to be relationship focused, because I always tell people I have no relationship advice to give, okay? Because I had to learn a lot and I had to figure things out in this relationship. And I don't feel like I have things figured out. And I don't feel like I'm in a position to be giving marriage advice as a newlywed and or relationship advice as someone who is engaged, because every relationship is different. You have to figure your own relationship out. And there are too many people who give advice like it's a formula and it's not a one size fit all. One size fits all. You really do have to figure out what works for you and your partner. So I'm not giving relationship advice. I have no intentions of making this podcast still about relationships. There are enough people who do that. I love being able to support women in their healing journey, in their wholeness journey, really walking in the authenticity of who they were always created to be. And that is not changing because I'm getting married. So I do want to give that disclaimer. That's still a Change of Heart podcast. That's still the focus. There ain't gonna be a new podcast about marriage or relationship. I'm not doing that. I genuinely love what I do and I want to continue to do that. So thank you all for being a part of this journey. It's crazy to say when we come back in season 5, there will be updates for the graphics for the podcast. My last name will be different. It'll be a whole new woman, but it's still going to be the same things. We're still focused on being whole, being healed, and being authentic. So I hope that you all have enjoyed this season. I hope that you all have been encouraged. I hope that you have found something throughout one of these episodes this season that has helped you in your journey to becoming the best version of you. And so I love y'all. Thank you so much for rocking with me this season. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic. See you all in January.
Thank you so much for tuning into a Change of Heart podcast. I hope you were encouraged, and please take a moment to share with a girlfriend, and don't forget to download the episode. Lastly, I would love to connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram at Angel C. Walston and at A Change of Heart podcast. Have an amazing week, and don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic.